on World Report. Escaping North Korea's repressive regime, but far from freedom.
I got hit severely. He put me in handcuffs and tied my legs together, put cloth in my mouth. My skin was bruised all over after he beat me.
Refugees held in virtual slavery, hunted by police on a daring and dangerous journey to a new life. Will they make it? All this tonight on World Report. Now reporting from Seoul, South Korea, here's correspondent Shannon Van Sant with her story, Long Road to Freedom.
These two North Korean women, whose real identity we have to conceal for their safety, are virtual slaves. The women, we'll call them Bo-kyung and Tae-hee, are being held captive in northeastern China. We are with the South Korean missionary, Pastor Chung Ki-wong, as he talks to one of the women, Bo-kyung, via computer.
I'm Bo-kyung.
Yes, I hear you.
Do I get to leave today?
He is trying to free the women and is going over the final details for a daring rescue plan.
When are you going to get me out?
We have to take you with Tae-hee. We just ordered a master key that opens any door, and the delivery is going to take a while. It's being mailed from Guangzhou. Do you want to leave with Tae-hee?
Of course, I would like to go with Tae-hee too. Staying in this house is hard for me. It's been a month here.
Is your situation bad there? Do you feel insecure?
Yes.
Bo-kyung and Tae-hee made a dangerous escape from their native North Korea, only to find themselves in a worse situation in China. They were lured across the border by human smugglers who promised well-paying jobs in computer companies in China. The smugglers then sold them into China's sex trade. Both women have been forced to do sexual video chats and take their clothes off for customers on the internet. The longer they keep men online, the more money they make for the companies. Tae-hee has been locked in a room for 10 months, 24 hours a day. If these women do not meet their boss's demands, they are beaten. Pastor Chung has a network of 15 fellow missionaries in China who help women like Bo-kyung and Tae-hee escape. He had Tae-hee take pictures of her door for him to study. If Chung can't find a way to unlock the door, she'll have to climb out of her window onto the balcony.
The house is right there, and the balcony is here, and the girl is going to climb up here and come down. If the missionaries there think our plan right now is not enough, we're going to change plans. This is taken from inside the room. This is connected to stairs and a veranda. It's a small space for a person to walk on, so there will be a guy assisting her from the upper floor.
The last woman Chung tried to rescue this way fell 7 stories to her death, but Chung thinks this time will be easier. A missionary will stay on a balcony above Tae-hee's and lower a rope for her to tie around her waist. She'll climb from her balcony to the next one over, where another missionary will wait for her. During a phone call with his team in northeastern China, Pastor Chung plans Tae-hee's escape.
From what I see here in the picture, it looks like it'll be pretty easy to get her out from the balcony. Tomorrow, I'll send another person if you need more manpower.
Missionaries say that North Koreans are crossing the border with greater frequency, many looking for refuge from one of the world's most repressive regimes. But just escaping to China doesn't end their ordeal. The Chinese government wants to stem the flow of refugees across their border. So, according to missionaries, Chinese policemen are awarded a bounty prize of $1,500 US, and Chinese citizens $70 for turning in North Koreans. If they are caught, refugees are deported back to North Korea, where they face jail time or even execution, and their families can be targeted. Pastor Chung Ki-wong is South Korea's most prominent activist rescuing North Koreans in China. He has rescued nearly 1,000 North Korean refugees over the past decade. Most of the women he rescues are victims of sex trafficking in China.
There are many cases. More than 90% of trafficking cases involve these sex video chat websites.
And the proportion of women to men crossing the North Korean border and being sold into marriage, prostitution, or to pornographic online companies is going up. Like most of the women that Pastor Chung tries to help, Bok-young and Tae-hee are unwilling sex workers and want out. Sympathetic customers from their work on the internet site connected them with Pastor Chung, and they reached out to him over video chat. If Bok-young and Tae-hee survived the rescue attempt, Chun said that if they were willing, I could interview them after they traveled to southern China. A week later, Pastor Chung told me the women had successfully escaped. One of Chun's missionaries would take them on a 4-day journey from Jilin province in northeastern China here to Yunnan province, where I would meet them. They were joined by another North Korean refugee, a 16-year-old boy named Minkyu. They traveled via bus, train, and taxi, avoiding police checks along the way. This is where I met Tae-hee and Bok-young in person. They were staying in a safe house and were not able to go outside for fear of being caught by the police. Bok-young is 29 years old. She grew up in a North Korean orphanage and worked in an illegal mine before a human smuggler offered her a job in a Chinese computer company where he said she would make a lot of money. She decided to go with him.
I crossed the Tumen River. The water came up to my knees. I don't remember how I crossed it. I just followed the guide. I'm not the type of person who asks many questions. All I know is that I was sold safely, and I don't know how many people had a deal in selling me.
The smuggler took her to a city in Jilin province, which borders North Korea. When Bok-young saw other women getting beaten, she knew she'd made a mistake, but by then it was too late. The so-called computer company was an internet video sex chat site, catering to South Koreans. Bok-young's new bosses taught her South Korean slang, the words for panties and underwear, and locked her in a room for days at a time. For every $400 she made for the company, Bok-young says her bosses would give her $100, and they beat her often for not bringing enough money into the company. 19-year-old Tae-hee worked at the same company as Bok-young, and the two women met and became friends. She grew up in a village near North Korea's border with China and says after she became a teenager, one by one, her friends crossed the North Korean border.
All of my friends have already crossed the border to China before me. They also sold themselves to the brokers, so I have no idea where they went.
Tae-hee decided to leave as well when her family began to suffer from lack of food.
My mom pretended like she was eating in front of my brother and me. We didn't notice because we were young, but usually she would go without food for 2 or 3 days.
Tae-hee took on more work at her family's farm, but still there was not enough food to eat. When a smuggler approached her and offered her a job at a computer company in China, Tae-hee accepted.
It is not an exaggeration to say that families that had daughters, at least one of them, crossed the border to China. There are guys who ask you on the street, "Don't you want to go to China?" One guy I knew like that on the street told me to go with him one day, and I just left without thinking. Very spontaneously. My mom didn't know back then. I wasn't even sure if I would go, so I didn't tell her. When I told my mom that I'm going to go to China, she always said no. No matter how poor we were, she said I have to stay with her. So basically, I betrayed her.
Tae-hee left in April of 2008 with the intention of sending money back home to save her family. She soon found herself trapped, along with Bok-young.
The brokers look at the girl's figure, face, and age. If they think that that girl can make a good profit, then she goes to work for video chatting websites. When they're not satisfied with the girl's looks, then she's sent to the countryside or a farming town.
Tae-hee's girlish beauty was a hit with customers, South Korean men and Western businessmen in Seoul. When they asked about her unusual accent, she said she was from a village near the tip of South Korea.
I was the most popular in the website. Some men waited for hours to talk with me. Some are just curious what kind of girl I am to be so popular. Guys who I'm close with gave me money. If I told them I was tired and wanted to sleep, they told me to go to sleep and leave the screen on so I could make more money. Even when I slept, I earned money.
Meanwhile, Bo-kyung was suffering regular beatings by their bosses. She, along with 3 other women at the company, planned an escape.
We ran out of the house while our boss was sleeping. As soon as we made it out of the building, we got in a cab and we poked the driver's back to keep driving.
Tae-hee was too scared to escape with them, and within a few days, Bo-kyung's boss learned where she and the other women were hiding.
I was caught by my first boss. He broke into the house through the balcony. I got hit severely. He put me in handcuffs and tied my legs together, put cloth in my mouth. My skin was bruised all over after he beat me. There wasn't a single spot of white skin left on my body. You can even see the scar from when I was stabbed that day. I can remember the day very clearly. It was May 3rd. When the boss went outside after beating me up, I opened the window and shouted out for help.
The police came and shut down the sex video chat company, and Bo-kyung spent 2 months in the hospital recovering from the beating. And then she and all of the other women from the company, including her friend Tae-hee, were deported to North Korea. They were sentenced to 5 months of hard labor as punishment for leaving the country.
The worst part was the bad living conditions. It was a very small room and over 80 people were in the same room from there to the balcony. It's only that big and it's filled with 80 people. You went crazy sleeping in there, and especially in July and August. There's sun shining on 80 people in that small room. And there were leeches. They locked the door at night just in case people tried to run away. The guard put a bucket in the room to use as a toilet. The smell was awful.
After a month, Tae-hee's former bosses in China bribed the North Korean guards at the labor camp into letting her go.
Before I got caught in June, I was the most popular on the website. Many people liked me, and even though I was young, I was earning much more than what other girls earned. My last boss paid money to the North Korean jail to take me out.
Smugglers brought Tae-hee back to China, where she was held captive again and forced to have sex video chats. Bo-kyung also returned to China, paying smugglers to take her across the river.
It was June 17th, and during the summer, grasses and flowers are abundant near the river. I hid behind bushes at night. The soldiers doze off when it's dark. I was freezing. All my clothes were wet. A truck stopped next to me, and he probably knew that I was North Korean because of what I was wearing.
The truck driver took her to the city in Jilin province where she had been held captive before. Having no other contacts and utterly alone, Bo-kyung looked for work in the sex trade and was hired by another sex video chat company. She was put in contact with Pastor Chung Ki-wong after one of her customers learned she was North Korean. She began talking with Pastor Chung about escaping to South Korea. Bo-kyung had found Tae-hee, and together they planned their trip with the missionaries. A man called Joshua, again not his real name, would help them leave China. Joshua is a South Korean who works for Pastor Chung in China. They would be traveling also with a third North Korean refugee I met in Yunnan province, 16-year-old Min-kyu, who had never seen a Western face before he met me and the cameraman. He says South Korean and Western movies are illegal in North Korea.
If we get caught, they take our televisions away. In the worst case, we go to hell. Prison.
Min-kyu grew up in a small North Korean village near the border of China. His stepfather was physically abusive. Over the years, the abuse from the stepfather, a truck driver, got progressively worse.
I wasn't able to relax around the house. Whenever I hear my mom and that guy fighting, it was always about me. It's all because he didn't like me.
He would stay at his grandmother's house to escape the violence at home, but one day his grandmother and uncle disappeared.
She told me that she was going to my uncle's place, and she never came back.
2 years ago, strangers began approaching Min-kyu as often as twice a month outside his home.
Those guys went around the town calling out my name. They asked my neighbors if there was a boy named Min-kyu. Whenever those guys came, my friend would call me out of the house, telling me that there was someone looking for me. People kept coming saying that my grandma sent them. When I asked them where my grandma was, they said they couldn't tell me. I said no whenever the guys tried to bring me with them, But when that last guy came, it was August 15th, Liberation Day, a national holiday. I didn't go to school, so I decided to leave that day. I couldn't take it any longer. I thought if I stayed longer, my future will be destroyed. Whenever I'm going through difficult times, I can't help thinking about my grandma. I was thinking I really miss my grandma, and I began my journey.
He crossed the Tumen River with the smuggler in August. The river waters came up to his chest, and once he was in China, he realized everything he had been taught about the North Korean government was a lie.
After coming out of North Korea, everything was so different. What they told me there was distorted. I realized that the only country that had fixed the whole history was North Korea. I realized it after coming to China. But back in the North, I knew nothing but Kim Jong-il, the leader.
After meeting the smuggler, Min-kyu learned that his grandmother and uncle had defected from North Korea years ago. Today, his grandmother is in Seoul and his uncle is in the U.S., and they asked Pastor Chun to make arrangements for Min-kyu's escape. The smuggler brought him to meet Joshua, Tae-hee, and Bo-kyung in Jilin Province. Tae-hee had just successfully escaped through her balcony window with the help of Pastor Chun's missionaries.
There were 3 people, one ready to drive off the car, one assisting me on the balcony on the same floor, and one on the 5th floor balcony to hold on to the rope that was tied around me for safety. I tied the rope around my waist and went out to the window. There was a little space to put my feet on out of the window, but I trusted the people and the rope. I closed my eyes, never took a breath, and just looked at the guy who was helping me. I reached my arms out, and thankfully, I was able to grab his hand. Coming here, I was very nervous, but the missionary told us that if we talk with God, He will protect us, so we should have faith.
Joshua took them south to Yunnan Province. He's made this trip many times before. Joshua says he's rescued 100 North Koreans, taking them from China's northeastern cities here to its southern border. He says Yunnan Province is heavily guarded by Chinese police and North Korean spies, looking for refugees who are attempting to cross the border. With Joshua, prayer was an integral part of the refugees' journey.
It's all thanks to God. We pray to God every morning, and whenever we have free time during the day, we pray. Because of God, we made it here safely.
This is the Mekong River behind me. The refugees have paid a drug smuggler $2,000 to take them across the Chinese border. They're not sure of what route they'll take, but they'll have to travel through Burma, Laos, or Vietnam to get to their final destination, Thailand. They told me that crossing the Chinese border will be one of the most dangerous parts of their journey. The refugees left Joshua's apartment at 5 in the morning. Joshua took them to meet another driver who then drove them to the border. They left their bags in the car and hiked with the drug smuggler through dense jungle.
The roads were bumpy. It was a road that wasn't like a road, and I just followed the guide. It was tough for me to walk up there, and since it was early in the morning, it was damp and slippery. I even fell down. When we almost made it to the destination, it was much better, but all my clothes and shoes were wet.
The car with their luggage met them on the other side of the mountain, and another man drove them across the Chinese border. The U.S. government has asked us not to reveal the refugees' specific escape route, because doing so might endanger other North Koreans trying to leave. The refugees had 2 weeks to relax in a second safe house south of China's border before continuing with their journey.
I've been eating rice and meat after I came here. I am well fed and mentally relaxed. Back in North Korea, I had to go out every day to work, but with this eat, play routine being repeated every day, I feel like I am dreaming.
Relishing their newfound freedom, the refugees spent most of their time outside. They explored nearby stores, and we took them to a Buddhist temple. While Bo-kyung and Min-kyu explored the temple, Tae-hee refused to go inside. She said the only thing she could have faith in was Christianity, and she worried going into the temple might anger God and tempt fate. After all, they were not out of danger yet. Even outside China, in this Southeast Asian country, they could still be deported.
If anybody reports to the police, I will be executed this time. because I was bribed to come to China after being deported. The North Korean government will kill me if I get captured this time. The reason why I want to go to South Korea is to get a citizenship. I will be free, and I won't be deported.
We are not in the safe zone yet. Once we're out of the dangerous area, then I would be more relieved. But for now, I'm still nervous and mentally unstable.
Ultimately, Minkyu wants to join his uncle in the U.S. He said he plans to apply for political asylum.
미국 상상해봤어?
I haven't yet. Everybody says it's good, so I guess it's good. Even back in North Korea, when I told my friends that my uncle called me from America, everybody was envying me. Even the people who took me to China said I was very lucky. I asked them, is America that good? And they said it's the best country in the whole world.
While waiting for the final leg of their journey to Thailand and hopefully freedom, the refugees often went to the banks of the Mekong River at night to talk, dance, and play.
I have to stop worrying about my family back in North Korea if I want to do a big job. If I keep worrying, I won't be able to achieve anything. This is for my future. Right now, I feel empty and I miss my mom. But just think about it. It's not easy to leave your mom behind like this, right? For my future, I have to forget about my mom.
A week after I last saw them, Bokyong, Tae-hee, and Minkyu traveled to Bangkok, where they met Pastor Chung. Bokyong and Tae-hee are now in Seoul, South Korea, where they will undergo a 2-month investigation to ensure they are not North Korean spies. And after that, they will spend 4 more months in a government resettlement center, where they will learn about South Korean history, politics, and culture. Minkyu is still in Thailand. He is in hiding and applying to the U.S. for political asylum. It's a process Pastor Chung expects will take 9 months. If Minkyu is granted a visa, he will join his uncle in Richmond, Virginia. When I met him, he had already bought a phrase book and begun teaching himself English.
I want to study well and achieve something big. That's my goal. I want to become a scholar. I want my name to be known by people.
After making it to Seoul, Tae-hee says her first priority will be sending money to her family in North Korea. After that, she has other plans.
When I came here, I saw a big difference to life in North Korea, and I see a new world. I believe that I can dream my own dream now. It's because the political system is different, right? I have many dreams, including becoming a celebrity in Korea, too. But first, I want to go to college and learn different fields of study and have a hobby. I have a new life here. I am a new person. When I go to South Korea, I will be free, and I will be able to achieve my dream. So I'm going to make it there.